Hello everyone, my name's Andrew Snowden and I work for the Rural City of Wangaratta as the team leader of natural resource management. One of my main jobs during this time of the year is tree planting, and over the last 11 years for council we've put a lot of native species in our reserves, trying to enhance the reserves, turning them back to a little bit more native than what they were. And prior to that I worked for a re-veg project in Benalla, so over the last 20 years I've probably put in nearly 500,000 trees and learnt lots of different ways or techniques of planting. So I'm just going to show everyone what I consider to be probably the best technique for planting tube stock, which is what we've got here. With planting, a lot of people just say, I'll just put them in the ground and they'll grow. Well, there's a little bit more, it's a little bit more involved than that. Probably the three main things with planting native vegetation is weed control, the second one's weed control, and the third one's weed control. If you don't control the weeds, they actually come in summertime when it's really hot and dry. The weeds actually take the moisture and the nutrients from the plant and they outcompete the natives, and potentially you'll do all this hard work planting trees and you'll end up losing them to competition. So the first trick is to get rid of the weeds. Now most of the sites that we plant have been sprayed with herbicide beforehand to reduce the weeds, take the cover off. But this soil here, even though it might be fairly weed free, this soil actually has seeds in it. So the trick is to actually remove that soil, that top cover. So what I normally do is just take a mattock and I just sculpt the surface away, just removing that load of weed seeds and take it back to mineral earth. So you could do it, maybe a square about 1 metre wide, 1 metre long. So we've got this nice piece of mineral earth that actually has no weed seeds. All the seeds are in this stuff. This is the stuff you don't want to get back around the plant. So of course you need a hole when you dig a tree, plant a tree. So I'll just take my mattock, just dig a hole in the middle of that scalped area. Now always try and dig it a little bit deeper than the tube, just so you can plant that plant a little bit deeper in the ground, and I'll explain why in a minute why I do that. Now you notice when I dig the soil out, the soil from the hole, I'm actually leaving just at the back of the hole. I'm not throwing soil everywhere. This is the soil here that I'll use to replant the plant. When you dig your hole, I would suggest you dig it about 20 centimetres deep. So it's a little bit deeper than the pot, and I'll actually explain why we do that. A lot of sites that we plant in have been ripped and prepared, which makes the planting really easy. But this side here, we're planting straight into soil. So we've got to break the soil up as much as we can so that the roots of the plants can chase water out and get down into the soil. So once you've dug your hole, take our plant. Now, the trick to this is getting this plant out of the pot without damaging the roots. So over the years I've seen people pick up tube stock and they go squeeze, 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 pull the plant out, and they've got a plant with roots here and they've got a pot full of soil over here, which the plants obviously don't survive if you do that. So there's a technique that I've sort of learnt over the years how to get them out without damaging the roots. Obviously there'd be thousands of little tiny roots in this pot inside, and if you damage the roots, it can actually make the plant sit moribund in the hole, and obviously they use their roots to pick up pick up nutrients and water. So you'll have hopefully a plant next to your hole. And what I've done with these plants, I've actually soaked them in water, in a bucket of water before I put them in, and that gets the root ball absolutely saturated with water. So you're not putting them in the hole dry, because they can dry out and die fairly quickly if they don't have any water. So first thing I do getting them out, as I said, resist the urge to squeeze because that really damages them. First thing I do is tear off any roots coming out the bottom of the pot. And the trick is with these guys to get them out, I take my peace fingers, or what I call peace fingers, place them around the pot, and I actually turn the pot upside down like this. So the bottom of the pot is pointing to the sky. And just on the back of my knee with the back of my hand, tap it and jiggle that off. And you can see the plant has come out of the pot and doesn't even know that it's actually out of the pot. So there's no root damage on that at all. All the new tube stock pots actually have root trainers that train the roots to grow down. Many years ago they had no trainers, and they would just grow round in circles, and you'd have to tease them. You don't have to tease these guys out, the roots of these guys out. And that one's ready to go in the hole. So he's got a really great root system. And as I said, the trick is to get that plant into the hole without damaging that root system. So even be gentle when you're holding them like this, because if you shake them too much, you can shake the dirt off them. So into the hole we go. Now you'll see that plant I'm putting in below surface level. Now the reason I'm doing that is because in summertime, this plant will be in a little bowl and it'll catch any extra water in summertime. So I'll plant a little bit deeper than the surface level. So with the soil I took out of the hole before, the weed-free stuff, I'll put that back in around the plant, and try, when you do this, try to loosen up the soil as much as you can. If you put in like big clunkers like this straight around the root ball, you're actually leaving air gaps, and the root ball can dry it on the plant. So just spend a bit of time breaking up the soil, and I'll bury that plant, put enough soil around it just to cover the black potting mix. So I haven't buried it up to here, and that'll kill the plant, and I haven't left the root ball out of the ground either. So I'll make sure that root ball's covered, and just give it a pat down. You don't have to really compress it, because if you've done the right thing, you've used this nice friable soil, and as soon as that gets rain on it, that'll settle down beautifully around the plant. So I've got our plant in. Most importantly as well is guarding the plants. In our reserves that I look after, and most re-veg sites, there's a couple of animals that will decimate these plants if you don't guard them. Hares and rabbits will do all sorts of damage to them. Even kangaroos can come in and nip the top off. So you'll obviously have 2 stakes and a guard, or depends if you're using cardboard guards or core flute guards. I like to use these cardboard guards. One reason I use these is because these actually biodegrade back, and you don't have to come and collect them down the track like you do with plastic guards. So first thing is, pick them up. These have got tabs on either side, so pop these tabs in like this. Take your stakes. The stakes just go obviously in through the side and out through the bottom. This is always fun for children to do, I've found. If they don't like planting, they have fun making guards in through that side. And when the guard is actually placed on the plant, I like to make sure the guard's a square shape. I just said diamonds only because that's a diamond shape, and it's not good for a plant if you plant them like that. If I was to plant that plant there, so I put that guard over a plant, what happens is these things do deteriorate and they close over. And if there's a small plant in there, it won't get sunlight. So square is the best shape. And the trick is, when you put them over the plant, is to make sure that where you've got the plant or the stem going into the soil, make sure it's in the middle of the guard, because you don't want to actually spear the root ball with your stakes. So basically it's just push them down, and this ground hasn't been prepared, so it's quite hard, but even then that guard is really secure. So once you've got your tree in the ground and guarded, I would suggest to give them water in. If you're planting later in the season, say late September, early October, you may get locked into actually watering your plants over summertime because they haven't had time to establish. But during this time of year or early July, that's in the ground. Any winter and spring rain we get will go into that bowl, and that plant will be away. We'll get away really quickly in springtime. But if it doesn't rain in summer, you may have to keep an eye on them and just make sure that they're not drooping and they look a bit ill. I'll just talk a little bit about spacings. This is a shrub, this one here. This will get to about 1 metre or 2 tall. What I would suggest with your shrubs is plant them maybe 3 or 4 metres apart. It just helps them it stops them from out competing one another. Some people may be planting gum trees or eucalypts. I would even go as far as 8 metres between those trees, because once they get bigger, the eucs will really take a lot of the moisture out of the ground, and they will outcompete the shrubs. Ground covers and grasses, which also we do a lot of planting of, you can pretty much plant those 30 centimetres apart. The ground covers really go well with each other, particularly the grasses, and they look really lovely up in a clump. Occasionally you may not have to guard some of your ground cover creepers because they've actually got to climb up out of the guard to get going. You might be better off just to plant them in the ground and let those guys creep out, or plant them near a tree so they can get running up a tree.